Hey everybody, welcome to the Show and Tech Podcast. I'm Devin, this is Mike.
And today we're going to be going over a couple things that we brought to the table. Devin's got some video capture, and I've got a little bit of an older technology that's kind of making its move into a new technology with Nvidia, and that's the Sly Bridge.
Or SLI if you don't want to put it all together.
Yeah, I'm a heathen, I've got to go with the easier way of saying it.
I don't know, I just feel like SLI rolls off my tongue better.
Yeah, Sly definitely rolls off my tongue a little better.
Yeah, when I hear Sly, I think Sly Cooper from PlayStation.
Oh, good game. Great game. True enough. I'll concede on that point.
All right. So go for it, man. I'm interested to hear about it.
I'll start out today. Okay, so the Sly Bridge, a lot of people may not know, was actually developed by 3DFX on their Voodoo cards before Nvidia actually bought them out and picked them up. It went away for quite a while. That was back in, they first developed it in 1998. And then Nvidia put out their own Sly devices in 2004. So a Sly device acts as basically a bridge to set up a multi-GPU platform or multi-graphics processor unit platform, your graphics cards. A lot of people think a common misconception is that when you use this device, it will actually allow each graphics card to function simultaneously in their own. That is not how the Sly Bridge works.
Right. So they gotta work in conjunction.
Exactly. So what it does is it sets up a master card, which you choose through your settings, that displays the video and maybe does a little processing of its own. But the other card that's hooked up to it, or two or three cards, you could eventually go into a 4-card Sly setup. Each one of the other cards works as a slave, doing a different job or doing the same job simultaneously on the same screen, relaying it back to the master card, and then the master card with its own process would display it on your screen.
Gotcha.
So that's basic rundown of how it works. There's a few different modes with the Sly Bridge. The first one I'm going to talk about today is the split frame rate. So with split frame rate, what it would do is one card would render, say, the bottom portion of your screen, and the other one would render the top portion of your screen. It was based on, theoretically, an imaginary line that would run through your screen.
It was imaginary until they went out of sync, and then you could actually see it.
Exactly. So one of the cons, of course, of that was if the cards weren't running specifically in sync with each other, which could happen occasionally, it would actually cause like a clipping line to go through your screen because they weren't synced up and working properly with each other. So that is a con of any multi GPU is, you could get some odd artifacts that happen on your screen due to the fact they may not be operating in sync at a certain time.
Right, yeah.
So, and you've got also micro stuttering and things like that, and we'll get into those a little bit later. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the ASR mode, which one card would render like the odd frames, whereas a second card would render the even frames. And then, of course, it would combine them all together, send it back to the master card, and the master card would display it. So essentially, you're splitting your workload in two.
Right. So you're getting frame. So GPU 1, GPU 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's just alternating each frame that it's displaying to you.
Now, that is one of the things where micro stuttering comes in. Once again, if the cards weren't operating in sync perfectly, which could happen occasionally, you would basically get artifacts on your screen, little clipping artifacts on your screen. Sometimes your frame rate would drop. And one of the things about it was in this mode, even using your like 3DFX benchmark tool, the 3DFX wouldn't really pick it up because, of course, that tests based on a average. Right. So the average would still show pretty well, but in all reality, you'd have one card that was actually bottlenecking itself to try and stay on par with the slower card that was running at that
Right.
time.
So if you think about, if you're ever playing like a modern MMO or something, you kind of feel like, you're trying to, hit your ability keys, something like that, or you're running and you kind of feel like you're juddering a little bit. It's a lot like that, essentially.
Exactly.
It would feel like that, just playing just a regular single player game.
Right. So that's the second mode. You also have the Sly anti-aliasing mode. Now, this mode's kind of cool because if you're not, say, into the Twitch gaming like me and myself am, so that's like your first-person shooters, things that require you to react quickly. And if it's a very graphics-intensive application, such as, say, an example would be back in the day, Crysis, or a more modern-day example of that would be, of course,
Crysis Remastered.
Dragon Age, Inquisition, some of these more very graphics-intensive games that have come out, and you're not worried about the frames, you could set this mode up, and basically what it does is the slave cards are responsible for rendering different portions of the screen in anti-aliasing mode. So it would
really smooth out that image.
Really smooth out the ridge and smooth out all those, sharp edges and everything. Really give you a great picture and render a better picture. So, once again, if you weren't worried about those frames, and even if you were kind of worried about the frames, we're not talking about like a 30, 40 drop in frame rate. We're talking about just 15, maybe 20 frames. So, of course, when we're talking about PCs here with the Sly technology, a lot of the console games at the time, until they got into the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, would only render at around 30 frames per second anyway. So you were still far ahead of the 30 frames per second. Still gave you a really good frame rate, but at the same time, just made that picture pop that much more.
Right. Just give it that real smooth, nicer look.
Right. So that was, that's kind of one of the most used if you weren't into the pro gamer / FPS kind of section. Now, later on towards the end of the Sly life, Sly Bridge life, you had what was called a hybrid Sly setup. And this was designed around a Sly-specific motherboard that had an integrated graphics processor. So that was kind of the first push to go more towards where cards were kind of acting on their own. Now, that's not to say they were acting on their own, but basically what it would do is it would take that integrated graphics processor. It would use it as the master. So all it did was display the image on the screen. And then you could have 3 or 4 cards behind it running all of the different processes and then reporting back to it.
Right. So basically just taking that displaying power that it was also doing and just offloading that to that integrated GPU.
Right.
That
Absolutely.
way you can use that even if it wasn't a whole bunch. I mean, that's still a little more power to put towards processing, just straight graphics.
Right, exactly. So of course now moving into the RTXs, Sly no longer exists. It is completely at the end of its lifespan. We've moved into, with the RTXs, into the NVlink system, which is a bridge like this, except instead of with these, where you had bandwidth transfer between the different cards of 350 megahertz for the first gen. For the second gen, it was 450, and for the third gen, I think it was around 3.25. So you're looking at around, I think, 650 megahertz transfer bandwidth. With the NVlink, you can get 25 at the minimum, all the way up to 100 gigabytes per second bandwidth transfer. So clearly a lot better on that.
Right.
You think about it, you've got the SATA SSDs that are at 6 gigabytes. So if you've got a graphics card processor, multi-graphics processor set up that's only running at like 3.2, it's kind of behind the times on that. So Sly is at the end of the life. Now we have the NVlink. With NVlink, and of course, being as it's, just started with the RTXs, so the 2000s, the 3000 series, just like, Sly was kind of more optimized towards workstation applications as well. That was its original process design. So NVlink is picking that up. Now that has moved into where NVlink now lets all of the cards operate independently. Mm-hmm. So that way, you can have one card working specifically on this, and it's not reporting back. It's just specifically sending it to the display. This card's working on this. It's specifically sending it to the display. So you don't have that having to transfer all of the information back and forth between one main card. Right. It completely eliminates that.
Essentially, in that link, that's such a high bandwidth, essentially what you end up getting with that is almost like one big graphics card with a whole bunch of video memory.
Exactly. And it is absolutely awesome. So, when a lot of people also thought with the old Slides, I can slide these two together and get this massive amount of memory. Well, no, you couldn't, because they were working as slaves reporting back to the master. So with the NVlink technology, now that's what you're getting. You can combine all the memory, you can combine all the processing power into one big package,
right?
Which is pretty sweet.
Oh yeah. It, kind of like you were saying, people think they were like, oh, I've got 2 cards with 4 gigs of video memory. So if I have 2 of them and they're linked, I've got 8 gigs. I can really go. No, that one card, like you said, it's the master. Basically, you're getting the specs of that one card plus some extra processing power.
Right. Absolutely.
That's literally all you were getting out of it.
Absolutely.
Which, don't get me wrong, worked well.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, when I set up my Sly system back in the day, I bought 2 1080s because the 2000 series had just launched with the RTX and they were on sale. So I bought 2 of those, half the price, and for one of the base, not like a 2080 Ti or anything like that, but for the base 2060, 2070 models, I was able to get about a 15% increase in performance based on just that one base model.
Right.
So, you got any questions?
No. Just something so we can look back on this in a couple of years. We had a little disagreement earlier that, was kind of off camera here. I'm pretty much, he's thinking, NVLink's going to make a comeback into gaming. We're going to see it go mainstream with gaming and whatnot.
Well, no, I didn't say mainstream.
Okay, well, maybe not mainstream, but, get the support from, developers.
Yeah.
To have that technology in your gaming. And I unfortunately disagree. It's going to be strictly workstation, technology, in my opinion.
So let's say we'll give it 2 or 3 years, see kind of how things are produced. I figure in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll probably have another couple lines of the Nvidia GPUs come out. We'll probably be in the high 4s, maybe early 5s at that point. And we'll kind of see maybe if some of the gaming companies are taking use of the technology.
They won't.
I think they will.
So, but we'll come back and we'll check on that.
Now, like I said, not mainstream or anything like that, but just, if they really want to push some major performance, take use of that technology to help with graphics. So we'll see.
Yeah, as much as I want to be on that board, because I mean, it's a great, like you said, it's a great technology. It looks freaking awesome in a computer, obviously.
Yeah.
But I just unfortunately don't think it's gonna, make a comeback. Unfortunately.
So, like we said, we'll see. Like and share, drop your comments, let us know what you think, and we'll see in a couple years where we're at.
We'll see. All right, cool. Anything else on that today, Mike?
No, that's about it. Pretty much went over some of the pros and cons and into the new stuff that's coming out as it's moving
awesome on. Yeah, no, I always wanted to. I never made the plunge myself.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. I enjoyed it. It was definitely cool, but it's one of those things that it's not specifically geared towards gamers in the lifespan it had. It was geared towards workstation, but it's kind of those little cool techie things like,
right.
Sly.
Right, exactly. Ultimate bragging rights.
Yep.
So, all right.
So, cool. What do you got, man?
All right. Well, what I've got here today, this is a video capture card, an external one, obviously, because it's not inside the computer.
Of course.
And what this is for is essentially exactly what it is says. You feed it in a video source of somewhat, and you can plug it into your computer and capture that video source and record your videos, whether you're wanting to do live streaming or just make let's play YouTube videos or something like that. And essentially how that works is you've got a HDMI input, a USB-C port that'll plug into your PC, and then you've got an HDMI out port that'll go back to your TV or monitor, so it'll have that pass-through. That way you can still hook it up and play on your normal screen.
Right.
And not have any worries about it. Now, there's all kinds of different capture cards and, different levels of what they can do. This one right here, this is the Elgato HD60 S.
Okay.
Very popular card. I believe it's going for around $100, $120, somewhere in there right now. So not the cheapest that's out there, but not the most expensive either. This one would do 1080p 60 on the pass-through and capture. It will not pass through high refresh rate or 1440p or 4K, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
They do, have higher end cards that will do that, but this particular one is great for, just 1080p 60. So, if you've got and it'll do up to that.
Right, yeah.
It'll handle your, resolutions and whatnot below that as well.
Right.
So if you've got any modded retro consoles that have an HDMI output, it'll be able to,
cool.
Go through that.
All right.
And be fine with that. But if you're using that RetroTink like I showed off last week, that converted that image over from that analog signal to that digital signal via HDMI, you can go through that into this and then into your TV and then have it hooked up to your PC. And now you're, recording your Super Mario World games.
Heck yeah. That's pretty
Nintendo.
good for some speed runs and some challenges and stuff like that.
Right.
Showing off some older games.
Right. And, it's even great still, even for the newer ones. I mean, because, not everybody has 4K monitors and stuff like that. A lot of people still, a lot of people hook up their game consoles to their PC monitors. I do as well. Because
monitors are so much superior.
You got that better input latency on there. Your TV input latency is usually a lot higher. They've gotten way better over the years.
They really have.
But it's still not as good as your PC monitor. So, you always had, it always just felt a little better playing on PC monitor personally. But, hooking up your PS4 or your Switch and having that, that 1080p signal, and if you've got a 1080p monitor that you're using, well, then you're golden because, you're not going to be running a higher resolution anyway.
Right.
And some other uses, actually, that you can do with it, it's not limited to just gaming or anything like that. Because, it'll accept any video feed through an HDMI signal.
Absolutely.
So, something that, I will be using hopefully soon, and maybe we'll hopefully be able to use on our podcast soon, is a digital camera.
Right.
If you've got a nicer one that's got an HDMI output on it, you can go straight into this and then straight into your computer. Just pull it up just like that in OBS, and you're good to go.
Awesome. Yeah, get you some of that digital photography and streaming and stuff going on with DSLR cameras.
You don't have to worry about trying to record off a cell phone or using crappy webcams or your laptop webcam, for your stream, because you can get a great video quality, obviously out of a nice digital camera for sure. That webcams and stuff have just not kept up with that same type of technology, and their sensors and lenses and whatnot that like Sony and Nikon cameras have just advanced so far and whatnot. So
the webcam and most all of PC tech related cameras definitely haven't kept as far up to that. Now, phone cameras are starting to catch up. Some of the Samsung S20s and iPhones. They're starting to catch up to that area quite quickly.
Oh yeah, I mean they're great. I mean, like we're recording this off my Pixel 5.
Yeah,
So I mean, every episode we've shot so far has been on my Pixel 5 phone. So
not bad.
yeah, I mean, can't argue too bad on that. So I mean, what we're doing is we're shooting the video in 4K, and then I'm just rendering it down to 1080p. So we're still getting that nice detail out of the 4K, but then we're sizing it down. But we're just recording it on straight from my phone. I'm not actually feeding it into a capture card or anything. I'm basically just pulling it off afterwards and then editing everything together.
Right. Editing process. It's very handy.
Right. But, if we make the move to using like a mirrorless DSLR or anything like that, we can use a capture card, feed that into the computer, and you can, if you're using like something like OBS, you can pull your video stream, your audio stream, and anything else you're doing all into one place and hit record, and it's all in one place.
All
you don't,
there.
You can just go back, and do, simpler edits, just cut what you didn't want or add some weird effects or whatever you do. Some YouTubers like to add those crazy stuff.
Right. We're not there yet. Maybe we will be.
Hey, I might just start adding explosions into the video sometime. You never know.
Let's both check that first before we okay it. But yeah,
I'm just gonna throw a random explosion one day into a video.
Thanks, Devin. He's probably gonna do it right on my face too.
He's giving me some great ideas. Great ideas.
Okay. So, question.
Sure.
When you're hooking up the card and everything's running through, does that cause any type of lag with transfer or anything like that?
Your pass through, like from the console to back to your monitor, it's so low you don't even notice it.
Okay, cool.
Like it's supposed to be there, but they advertise it as lag free.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's 100% truly lag free.
Right. There's always going to be a lit. I mean, you think about it. Let's think about it in microscopic terms, like germs. Right? We can't see them.
Right.
Well, when you're talking about lag, you're talking about milliseconds.
Right. Or or nanoseconds.
Nanoseconds.
And that's where you're really not going to notice it.
Right.
And like I said, I've never noticed any type of increased
awesome.
latency or anything like that. And I was playing a lot of Destiny 2.
Oh yeah.
And whatnot. So that would definitely be something I would definitely feel it in
for sure.
And I'd never noticed it once.
Okay.
There. So, and even using the connection back to the PC, the feedback, from when you were doing something, it would process and capture it onto your PC. It was almost instantaneous too. I mean, so you had like a really good, feed for keeping up with what you were doing. You weren't having to do something, kind of watch and see if it would do it like a second later.
Right.
It would be almost instant as well.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, since you have more experience with the capture card, what do you think there's any cons coming with it, or?
I mean, the only con I could think of is if you can't, afford, a good enough one to, be like a 4K or
4K streamer, right? Yeah.
If that's, if you're playing your games in 4K or 1440p still,
Yeah.
Or, even at those higher refresh rates, if maybe you're playing 1080p, at 144, if you don't, you got to buy a card that's going to work for what you're wanting to do.
Right. So, and, that ties into your price point as well. If you're, looking to start out, one of these lower price points, 1080p, just fine. Whereas, if you're already in that and you're starting to get some sponsorship with stuff like that, maybe spend that higher price point and go up to the 4K captures.
Right. But I mean, as for cons, I mean, just like I said, the price, of just increasing price, for increasing resolution capture and stuff like, and even the pass through. Like I said, even if you don't want to capture it at 4K, but you still want to play at 4K, you want that to pass through.
Right.
We still got to have the higher tier cards, unfortunately, on that. But a great thing about that is, I mean, you do have options.
Okay.
So, I mean, say, maybe you could compromise and, you could play your games at 1080p or something. You've got that option. You can go with that lower price point.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Let's see. So,
and then you're going to have an extra cable in there.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say that's a con. You've got an extra cable
Yeah.
to
More
manage
cables.
now.
We hate cables nowadays, but, you know, you do what you got to do.
That's right.
Let's see. It seems like there was something else I was going to ask about it. I think that's it. I think we covered it.
I was about to say, I keep bringing in things that are pretty straightforward.
That's true. You do.
You know, I mean, it's just.
But hey, that's
you plug
okay.
it in,
I mean,
it works. and you know, that's what I like about this one. I mean, like Elgato does have like their own like software. You know, sort of similar to OBS. You know, it's a capture software and stuff like that.
Right.
But you don't have to use that with that. I mean, this is pretty just plug and play.
Plug and play.
You know, you just plug. Like I was testing out. You know, my wife's DSLR with it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Plugged in, turned on computer, worked just like that.
Well, and you know, to be honest, let's just go ahead and say it. There's been a lot of products that have been ruined by, oh, well, you have to use this software with it. And that software is absolute trash. Terrible graphic user interface, terrible, you know, interaction with the hardware itself.
Right.
So there's something to be said about just simple microchips that are just plug and play.
Right.
I mean, they'll work with anything.
And I tried the Elgato software, and you know, it's not bad at all. The interface wasn't too crazy. You know, it worked good. You know, I was used to using OBS.
Right.
So it was just nice that it just works. You don't even have to install anything from Elgato.
Awesome.
To, have this work. It just plugs it in and you pull it right up. So it's a great.
Cool, man. Well, it's, one nice, cool little microchip again from Dev over there. I like it.
Yeah. I'm trying to get this like little theme going on. It seems like, we had the analog to digital converter. Now we're capturing that digital image. I wonder what's going to be next.
It's like you're working down a little tree that you got going there.
I think that's about all I had for today.
All right, cool. Well, once again, I'm Mike. This is Dev.
Make sure you hit, the like button down there. Subscribe. Make sure you hit that little bell so you get notifications when we post our videos.
See the YouTube algorithm. That helps us the most.
Yeah.
So this has been another Show and Tech, and this is us signing off. Thank you guys for tuning in.
All right. Have a good one.